Closer Look is a public affairs presentation. Views and opinions of the guests don't always reflect the views of the ministry, and some topics aren't suitable for children. Air1 is committed to community. Closer Look continues with a look at local agencies, events, and issues.
This is Closer Look. I'm Tanya Bohannon, and my guest today is Drew Glassford, the Chief Executive Officer of the Boys and Girls Club in Dundee Township, serving children in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Welcome, Drew.
Thank you, Tanya. It's great to be here.
I'm so glad to have you back. We spoke with you a couple of years ago, and you told us about your mission. Let's touch base on that again for those who haven't heard about you. Tell us who you are, and how does your mission apply?
You bet. So our mission is to enable all young people, especially those who need us the most, to reach their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible citizens. That's quite a mission, honestly, especially when you think about our kids. 91% of them are at the poverty level or below, so significantly under-resourced families. A lot of them have either single parents, single moms, or if both parents are in the home, they're working 2 or 3 jobs, and they're really challenged to provide the support for their kids that a typical resource family would provide. And so we really feel like we are able to, we don't want to say we're the parent. I feel like more like we're that aunt or uncle that like becomes a real influencer and guider for our kids to help prepare them for success as an adult. We are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. And it's a real extraordinary testament to the commitment of our community, which includes our program partners, our facility partners. We've got an awesome school district, park district, and an amazing group of business leaders on our board of directors who all help guide our strategy, help guide our growth. You know, we've gone from serving 25 kids in a one-room facility to now over 10 sites, over 2,000 kids a year. Just extraordinary growth and impact, but mainly because the community cares and the community puts forth the effort that's needed to make a difference.
So how did it get started right there in Dundee?
You know, that's a really great story of 3 people who cared. So we had Tom Mammoser, who is the chief executive of the Park District. We had the chief of police, and we had the head of the school district, who noticed that there was an increase in crime and gang activity in Carpentersville. And it was really the police chief who approached the other 2 and said, you know, our kids need something after school in order to not just provide a safe place to go, but to really work on character development. And he had been familiar with the Boys and Girls Club at a prior position that he held and proposed it as a solution. And the Park District, the Dundee Township Park District, really owned it and said, well, we'll help really provide the space and help with the initial funding to get it off the ground. They do a lot of after-school programming for resourced families. They said, you know, we'll take it on for under-resourced families. So those 3 really saw the need, made the commitment, and said, let's work together in order to make this successful. And it was from those humble beginnings, you know, the initial commitment that really made this possible, and the vision and I would just say the heart to make a difference. And when you think about our organization and where we started and where we are now, you know, we started as just really providing that safe space. And I'm really excited to say gang activity is at a 0 level. You know, if you ask the chief of police, he says, no, we have no gangs in Carpentersville. You know, that just doesn't exist. And so we feel we've solved that challenge. And what we've taken on in the last 5 years is, okay, we've met that need. We've given the kids a safe place. Now, how do we move as a change agent in their lives in order to really provide the supports to be successful?
Yeah, that's, I think, what matters most is that long-term support. If you are just tuning in, I'm Tanya Bohannon, and I'm here with Drew Glassford. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Boys and Girls Club here in Dundee Township. Now, how did you get involved with the Boys and Girls Club? When did you start with them? And tell us a little bit about your background.
I started here as CEO 3.5 years ago, and prior to that, I was the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the National Foundation for the Boy Scouts of America. And in that role, I was in that role for 8 years. I worked on a lot of initiatives around career pathway, STEM initiatives, and youth development at mostly the middle school and high school levels, which is when scouting really thrives and makes a difference. And I was drawn to scouting and drawn into the world of youth development because of my background, and I'll share a little bit more about that. But I have to say it was a shift for me that I made. I started in a for-profit role in real estate development and commercial construction, and did that for about 25 years, and then had a real change of heart and decided to start doing the work of not just no longer building buildings, but building great futures for our kids. So scouting gave me the access and awareness of a lot of successful programs across the country. I spent a week, a month in Austin, Texas. I spent time in New York City, St. Louis. I got to study a lot of programs that were successful. And so when this opportunity became available, I thought it was an extraordinary opportunity to apply what I'd seen, learned, and wanted to do and in a market that really needed it.
Well, let's talk about some of those things that you wanted to do. What have you accomplished over the last 3 years?
It's been a real whirlwind of activity and success, I have to say. As I shared, my passion was really about middle school and high school kids. The reason I went to the Boy Scouts of America was because I'm an Eagle Scout, and I was raised by a single mom who had very little resources and, was challenged to provide opportunity for us. And it was scouting that really gave that to me. And so I knew, I look at my career success and life success, a lot of it came from that influence of scouting. And so I knew an after-school program could make a significant difference. And when I was approached about the opportunity in Dundee Township, they said, we've got a great elementary school program and middle school program, but we're really missing that high school piece. So that intrigued me. And so the first project that I really set my mind to and our team's efforts towards was developing our Impact Center, which was our new, I shouldn't say new. We actually opened it 2 years ago, but because of the pandemic, it's been pretty constrained. The pandemic limited a lot. So we're really launching the full program this fall, but it's probably what I'm most proud of having accomplished in my tenure here, because it's really about how do you identify barriers for kids, what's in their way, how do you overcome it through life coaching and mentoring, and then how do you give them that awareness of what's out there, what's available, what could I become, and then help support them on that path.
So you mentioned earlier that the gang activity has practically diminished in your area. Do you feel like that Impact Center has been the reason why you've been able to accomplish that?
I believe it is, and that's because, in a youth's life, you need the entire pathway from elementary school through high school to keep them engaged. That's actually something that scouting really struggled with. When our youth would get into high school, it just wouldn't be relevant to them or meaningful to them, and so you lose them at like age 16. But you think about adding value through high school. It takes a real strategic approach around purpose and opportunity and helping them overcome their barriers. And when a child sees that you care about them and you want to help them overcome that with an authentic approach of interest and an authentic approach around exposure to opportunity and supporting the alignment between where they're at and where they need to go in a genuine way, I think that's what, having somebody care about them, it really comes down to that. I really believe that. We're so blessed. We have a staff of almost 100, and I got to say, every one of them shows such a sincere interest in kids and in their future. And obviously parents, have that innate in them, but sometimes they're just so busy struggling and to provide for their families with limited resources and the stresses that come along with that, they're not always able to be there. And so I think that's the piece for us, that our kids know we care. They know when they come to club, we care. They get a strong sense of belonging. And that sense of belonging, when you think about what do gangs provide, that's really a huge piece of it. They give the kids value and a sense of belonging. So it's all of those facets that contribute to minimizing the opportunities for gangs to really create foothold, because our kids have a sense of purpose. They feel like they're valued, and they feel like they have a pathway that's being supported for their success.
Oh, I love that. What kind of activities take place at the Impact Center?
So we call the rooms and the activity centers within the Impact Center labs. So labs, are places to try things, to try new things and see if you like it or have an interest. So we have a Create Lab, which is where we do arts and crafts. We have a Build Lab, where the kids work with their hands and build projects. We have a tech lab around technology. We have a cafe with a culinary lab so they can, try to cook. We have our kids try at least cook one meal a week for everybody. They definitely tinker every day, but we focus on one meal where they can, get other members' opinions on whether they were successful or not. And then we have a game lab, and the game lab is about having fun, but, how do you work as teams with both digital gaming, foosball, the typical things you see in a game lab or in a game room. But we really want to work on collaboration and teamwork. So we feel the spaces create the environment that kind of get them to think differently. We're big on adaptability. So we get them to go into new situations, and we spend a lot of time designing our experiences so that it challenges them and gets them to grow.
Thank you for joining us. This is Closer Look. I'm Tanya Bohannon with my special guest, Drew Glassford, the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Dundee Township. Well, you got my attention, Drew, when you talked about a food lab. I'm sure no one wants to leave that lab. Do you bring in special guests or any special chefs or people from the outside or volunteers that assist with those types of labs?
Yes, Tanya, that's a huge piece of it. If you're trying to increase awareness, you have to get kids outside the confines of their typical environment, which for a lot of our kids, it's their house and their neighborhood. And so having elements of the outside community coming to our labs to do experiences is a big piece of our strategy, as well as getting our kids out too. We do field trips and site visits, but I really like bringing outside guests in and outside specialists in. So we have chefs from area restaurants that come in. We have business owners that come in and speak. We have professionals and folks from the technical trades and essential skills come in and talk to our kids about, and particularly we really want to focus on professionals and thought leaders and accomplished, successful community members who look like our kids, so they can identify with them and say, you know what, I grew up in Carpentersville, or I grew up in your community, and I look like you, and I had circumstances like you, and I was successful. And I was successful, whether it's, as you shared with our culinary lab, either, starting as a chef, starting as a busboy, what did their path look like? Did they go to school? Did they not go to school? But also around healthy eating, saying, I used to eat all the junk food and I didn't feel good. And I or fast food, and then I started to learn to cook for myself. And this is how I approached it. So it's really about being relational and providing that sense of I've been there. And this is how I got to where I am. And I have to say, I'm glad you touched on food, because food's a big motivator for a high school aged member.
Right.
And so we use food a lot, and it's a big draw. So yeah, we love focusing on food.
Well, with all the programs out there with chefs and cooking competitions, I mean, what a fun thing to be a part of for a high schooler.
I agree. There's so much interest in it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are also wanting to learn how to grow their own food. Do you cover anything like that?
We sure do. We actually have a hydroponics center as part of our culinary lab. So we have hydroponic towers, and we teach the kids. We have a volunteer who comes in who runs hydroponics and knows hydroponics and teaches them, how to plant, how to cultivate them, and then how to harvest them. And the great thing about a hydroponic garden is the amount of time. It accelerates growth time. So you're not waiting 3 months, watching a plant grow. That's not very compelling. But when you've got something in 2 weeks, that you planted, and the best thing about it is then you can take in and cook with it. It's really, really awesome. So that program's actually done so well that we're going to expand it and actually move it more into an entrepreneurship program where the kids will grow vegetables that they can then sell to some of the local restaurants we partner with, as well as some of the farmers markets. We think that's a great opportunity too.
Wow. Talk about an impact to the community. That's great.
Well, thank you for that, Tanya. We named it the Impact Center. It really has a duality to it. We know our mission is to impact our kids. That's certainly what we're committed to. But when we think about our kids, for them to show that they're making an impact on the community and on the world, their families, that's the call to action where we feel we're raising the bar on, not just a knowledge-based, skills-based, but much more purpose-oriented, so that our kids feel a part of the community. They feel like they have a purpose. They have something to contribute, and are making a difference.
Drew Glassford, the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Dundee Township, is sharing with us all about the programs and services that the Boys and Girls Club offer right there in Dundee. Drew, that is such great information. You talked a little bit about volunteers. So are you accepting volunteers now?
We certainly are, Tanya. I have to say, of all the impacts of the pandemic on our program, we actually had to go without volunteers for about a little over a year, almost a year and a half. So when you think about the ability of the community to really make a difference for our kids and our kids to get to know the community, volunteering is so robust in building those bridges and building those relationships. So we have extraordinary opportunities now. The doors are open. We actually have now a full-time volunteer coordinator because we've had such great interest from the community, and it's such a vital part of our mission. So everything from academic support, our kids need help with reading and math at every level, and just coming in and doing art projects with them, STEM projects, athletic projects. It's really kind of interesting because lots of community members will say, I really don't know this, or I don't know that. I've never worked with kids before. And it's like, that's great. That doesn't really matter. What's important is the relationship. So, and sometimes it's really great if you're figuring out with them too. You're showing that you're an adult and you don't know, but you're willing to learn and you're willing to try. So modeling that effort and initiative is really, really good. So that's one thing we say is you don't need to know how. We can give you the how, but what we do need is for you to care. And anyone that I believe steps forward to even say they want to volunteer, well, that's a given. They care. We are just really blessed with so many community members who care.
So if someone wanted to volunteer, what is the best way to do that? Do you have a website that we can find more information at?
We do, Tanya. It's BGCDT for Boys and Girls Club at Dundee Township.org. And there's a link there to our volunteer page. It gives an idea of some of our opportunities. And then there's a real simple interest form with your name and phone number and email address. And then Kayla, our volunteer coordinator, will reach out to you and talk about where there could be a good fit.
Do you have any annual events that we should be aware of?
Tanya, we do. We have several. We have an annual golf outing that's typically towards the end of summer. We have a gala that we have where we have over 400 attendees hear about our mission, celebrate our accomplishments, and then donate and invest in our cause. And that's typically held in the fall. We have a Youth of the Year event where we recognize at every level our kids who have really excelled and demonstrated competencies and character traits that we really want to recognize and appreciate. And then we have a community appreciation event that we do in the early summer that really acknowledges our partners, the park districts, the school districts, the businesses, our board of directors, our volunteers. We just really want to acknowledge the village it takes to be successful at that community engagement event.
Drew, I would love to hear a success story, and I bet you have a lot of them. But is there one particular one that stands out or is a favorite of yours?
The one that really sticks out to me is one of the first conversations I had. We had a club member who started with us in first grade, went through our program through high school, and became a social worker. She got her master's degree in social work. And I sat down to talk with her because I really wanted to get an understanding of her perspective on club. And she shared about her path to get her master's degree in social work. And she said, I graduated from high school, and then I worked for 2 years while I went to community college and earned my associate's degree. And then I joined the Army, and I was in the Army for 4 years so I could get the GI Bill and then go back and finish my 2 years to get my bachelor degree. And then she said, I worked for 2 or 3 years to save up enough money and then went part-time. And it took me about 4.5 years to get my master's degree in social work. And she said, so by age 32, I finally got to my master's in social work. I got my dream job, which is, God bless her, making a difference for kids. And she's working as a social worker in a school environment. And when she shared all that, that entire pathway, she was kind of embarrassed about it. Like, it took me 12 years to get to where I wanted to be. And it was this, really challenging path and, way longer than it should have taken. And I just said, wait. think about that. Look at what you did. You didn't give up. You really made a success of yourself, and you had, resources were your biggest challenge, and you didn't let that get in the way, and you worked really hard at it, and you found it. And there should be no hesitation or embarrassment about that story. You should be shouting that one from the rooftops. It still gets me now, because I think about, where kids are at and what they think it takes to be successful, and we are all challenged with, what I should be doing or how my life should be, that we don't celebrate what we've done. And that one for me showed, and perseverance and determination and self-confidence and, purpose. And when I asked her about all that, she just said, well, I said, why did you stick with it? And she said, those leaders at the Boys and Girls Club made such a difference for me that I wanted to do the same. That was my driving force. They gave me such a sense of self and purpose and value. I wanted to be able to do the same for others. And that's what kept driving me. And if that's not a success story, it's just an amazing outcome.
Yeah, that's a great story. And that just speaks volumes. So what does the future hold for the Boys and Girls Club in Dundee Township?
Tanya, we have an amazing future, I have to say. Our 25 years of hard work from our community partners, our board, and our staff have now revealed opportunities where we're getting approached by many other communities in the northwest suburbs of Chicago saying, we really want the Boys and Girls Club here. We're in negotiations and working on strategies with 3 new markets. We're going to be developing a new impact center with a community partner that's basically giving us the building and saying, we want it. What do we need to do to support it? The national organization has recognized us as a leader in youth workforce development, youth mentorship, and SEL programs. So we're piloting a bunch of programs for the national organization around those initiatives. It's just been exciting, amazing, and I can't wait to see where we're going to be in the next 5 years.
It sounds like you have some exciting things coming up. We are getting ready to close. Is there anything that you'd like to be sure to add?
I just want to be sure to add gratitude for anyone who has helped form the future of a child's life. We believe that the most important work in the world you can do is the life of a child. And I'm just really grateful for community partners, business leaders, volunteers at every level, boards of directors, on-site volunteers, Rotary clubs, churches, everyone who's committed to making our communities and our families' lives better. I'm just so grateful for that. I'm grateful to you, Tanya, for your interest and giving us this platform. It's just great to see that we're being paid attention to, that the value is seen, and that the entire community is helping us make a difference.
Give us your website information one more time.
BGCDT.org.
I can't tell you thank you enough for sharing everything that you're doing right there in Dundee. I could talk to you all night and listen to all of your stories. So thank you so much for joining us, Drew.
Thank you, Tanya, to you and Air1 Radio for all you do. Have a great day.
To learn more about the Boys and Girls Club in Dundee Township, you can also email us at closerlook@air1.com. That's closerlook@AIR1.com. For Closer Look, I'm Tanya Bohannon.
This has been Air1 Closer Look. Find us online at air1.com.